Life is an intricate mix of the good, bad, and the indifferent, a mix with many multifaceted layers that are often unasked for, unsolicited, but nonetheless layers we must bend and reshape to make space for. It's World Cancer Day, reigniting the idea that cancer awareness and education is necessary because of its unsought-after entrance to lives across the world. While the mood may feel somber, my purpose here today is to share stories of hope and caution as we look at some common and not so common types of cancers inside Jamaica Magazine. As always, welcome. I'm Audrey Williams. Let's meet right back here after the news.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Friday, February 4, 2022. A new field hospital for COVID-19 patients has been set up on the grounds of the Savannah Lamar Public Hospital in Westmoreland. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, opened the 50-bed facility on Wednesday. He says it will help to ease the pressure on the parish's main hospital as the country continues to experience the fourth wave of COVID-19 infections.
The threat of COVID still exists. And so the field hospital that we have put out here today is a proactive move to manage treatment. And as a government, as a region, we appreciate and understand the pressures on this institution here in Westmoreland and the need to expand the facilities to provide care to those who need it.
The field hospital was constructed at a cost of $35.4 million with donations from the CEO of the Jamaican Medical Cannabis Company Group, Diane Scott, and chairman of ARC Manufacturing and ARC Properties Limited, Norman Horn. Minister Tufton says there is potential for the facility to be expanded in the future. During the opening ceremony, he also unveiled 4 mobile clinics that will go to each of the regional health authorities for use in the ministry's community COVID-19 vaccination program. Government's national broadband initiative is being accelerated as the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS, agrees to use its utility poles to run aerial fiber cables. Technology Minister Darrell Vaz made the announcement in this week's sitting of the House of Representatives. He says the ministry received permission last week and already JPS and the National Works Agency are in discussions about how the work will be executed.
I outlined that the ministry was working with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information and the National Works Agency in an effort to expand the government's broadband footprint with the intention to connect over 900 educational institutions to the government network through a tiered system, thus facilitating access to faster internet speeds for teachers and students in schools.
The minister reveals that tenders have been issued for contractors to erect cables in St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, and Westmoreland. He says discussions are also underway with Flow Jamaica for free access to 2 dark fiber strands on the north coast. This is to supply end-to-end access from the St. James Municipal Corporation to the St. Anne Municipal Corporation, then to St. Mary, on to Portland, and then to St. Thomas Municipal Corporation. The Jamaica Teaching Council bill, which seeks to establish a governing body for the teaching profession, was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. It will also establish a licensing and registration regime for all government-paid teachers. The bill was brought before the House by Minister of Education and Youth, Favour Williams. During the same sitting, the House was also presented with the regulations for the Road Traffic Act by Transport and Mining Minister Audley Shaw. This will provide for a more structured application of the principles and purposes of the new Road Traffic Act, which was passed in the House of Representatives in 2018. It covers fitness, registration, and licensing of motor vehicles, as well as the construction and equipment for motor vehicles. The regulations also deal with the licensing of drivers and driving schools, the certification of driving instructors, as well as traffic signs, speed limits, and rules of the road. The Harry Watch Primary School in rural Manchester is to be outfitted with a smart computer lab following the signing of an agreement between the Ministry of Education and the Digicel Foundation. The computer lab should be completed by May and is being financed by the Digicel Foundation at a cost of $55,000 US. It will provide students with access to information and communications technology (ICT) in a structured learning environment to better prepare them for a digital future. Education Minister Favour Williams commended Digicel Foundation on the undertaking.
We know that this is so important as we continue our efforts to close the digital divide and enable children across the island to be properly prepared for our contemporary society.
CEO of the Digicel Foundation, Charmaine Daniels, says over the next 3 years, it will be working with the ministry to target a total of 10 rural primary schools for the implementation of similar smart facilities. Anchovy Primary in St. James is the next institution set to benefit.
These are the first two. We are looking at a 3-year program. We will be seeking partners as we roll forward to partner with us so that we can impact more schools.
And finally, the Hope Royal Botanical Gardens is getting a facelift to its eastern entrance. This after Her Excellency Lady Allen broke ground for a new entrance at the Old Hope Road facility on Wednesday.
As we break ground this afternoon for a new and beautiful entrance to the Hope Botanical Gardens, we feel a sense of great pride and joy in knowing that the people of Jamaica, and especially our children, will be left with a rich legacy.
The project, which is expected to be completed in 8 weeks, is being financed by the Culture, Health, Arts, Sports and Education Chase Fund.
The new entrance will put a new face on the gardens as we get ready to celebrate the 60th anniversary of our independence, which is our Diamond Jubilee.
And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60 and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
Breast cancer remains one of the most common forms of cancer, generating despair, diminishing spirits, and snatching souls. But while it remains a major health challenge, your outlook doesn't always have to reflect the negative adjectives attached to this illness. The proof is in the feature ahead. Meet these breast cancer fighters.
For many, it starts with a little itch on the breast, a lump in the area perhaps, a bit of redness on the nipple, or even nipple discharge. And you know it's not breast milk. Besides, you're no mother, neither are you pregnant. Research shows that breast cancer remains the leading cause of cancer-related death among Jamaican women and is the most common cancer among women worldwide. And even with increased screenings and public education, it still remains a major health challenge. Two women, Kamala McWhinney and Kadia McCoy, both share a similar story. For them, the common denominator is breast cancer. Kamala is in remission and Kadia is undergoing treatment. They now meet for the very first time to have a conversation about their mutual foe.
So Kadia, tell me when and how you found out that you have breast cancer.
Oh boy, well, it was in April. I remember I was in the shower and I felt a lump, but it was huge, so I wasn't thinking it was anything because I'm always doing my self-examination. And when I felt the lump, I said, maybe it's just premenstrual syndrome. So I remember after a shower, I went to my husband and I said, feel this, it's a lump and it's huge. And he said to me, maybe it's, premenstrual syndrome. So when my menstruation came, I realized the lump went away, and then in May, it came back, and it came back sooner than the time I had felt it in April. So I said, no, I need to go to the doctor and check this out. So it was the week after my 31st birthday. So I went to the doctor, and she was like, okay, let me see what the girl's up to, and she examined the right breast, and she said, okay, I'm going to let you do a mammogram and an ultrasound. She was like, oh, they're just going to aspirate, it is just fluids. And when I went to do the mammogram and the ultrasound, the doctor said to me, she said, she said to me, this is not something that we're going to aspirate. You have to do a biopsy. And right away I said, are you serious? And she said, whatever it is, you're going to be okay. And when I did a surgical biopsy on a Monday, and I waited on the result for about 3 weeks, and my doctor messaged me and said to me that, I have the results and it's not good. But what was your experience like?
So interestingly, I was 30.
Wow.
So I was a little bit younger than you. And
Right.
I was having a persistent itching in my left breast. And I
Right.
was wondering what's causing this. Is it my detergent? Is it my fabric softener? What's causing this thing to be itching so much? So one day I was just at home after work on the couch watching TV, and I was scratching the itch. And I
Right.
felt something in my left breast, and I said, but it's not in the right breast. So then
Wow.
I was like, this needs to get checked out. So it took me a while because I was just in shock, like, what could this possibly be? So maybe about 10 days or so after, I worked up the courage, made the appointment, and went to the doctor. And then from that now, my GP said to me, go and get an ultrasound done. Got the ultrasound, and the results said that there's a mass in the left breast that is strongly suspicious of malignancy.
Wow. Yeah.
And then from there I did a biopsy, and it was October 18th that I got back the results in 2013 that it was in fact breast cancer.
Wow. What was it like when you found out? What?
So I was alone in the doctor's office because I was living out of town at the time. And
Okay.
my doctor said to me, I've never seen anybody take it quite like you, because I wasn't crying, I was asking questions, I was seeking
Okay.
information. And then
Yeah.
the very next day my mom came down and she was by my side for the whole journey. So of course the emotions hit me when I left the doctor's office, and I know I had to call her because I knew
Right.
she was going to be devastated, and that's what made me start crying.
Wow, yeah. Yes, it can be quite overwhelming. I can really relate to that. It was hard. It's like your life changes completely. My life has now become about doctor visits, Everything is about, going to the doctor maybe once per week. It has changed completely. It makes me realize how precious, life is. It's delicate. Don't stress too much on the small things. Do everything you manage to be where you are now, like this?
Actually, no. I had this hope that it wouldn't always be this rough, but in terms of always sharing the story as much as I am now, 7 years after,
Right.
I never thought that I would be sharing it from a place of positivity all the time, because I was
Right.
angry, I was sad,
Yeah.
I had so many questions, like, the typical question of why me? I tried to
Right.
eat healthy, there was no family history, all that type of stuff. But as the months and years roll on, it gets easier to talk about it and to share details of the journey.
For me, my thoughts, I think that my body, had betrayed me so much. It was really hard.
Like when you look in the mirror now, Kadia, what do you see?
For me, I see a woman of confidence, I try to be strong. I look at myself and I see the scars, I see the bald head from chemotherapy, and it made me realize that I'm fighting a battle and I have the willpower to to live, you know, especially for my daughter and my husband. Are you always, you know, were you always this positive?
Not at all. If it wasn't for COVID, I'd come and give you a hug right now. Because I know it's emotional talking about, especially so fresh in the journey. So I'm sending you love.
Thanks. I'm not always positive, but I try to be as, you know, like out of 10, I break down like maybe 1 out of 10, but 9 out of 10, I try to stay as positive as possible. And especially that I have a good prognosis, it keeps me going because all my scans came back clear. So it's just really doing chemotherapy, radiation, and then maintenance for probably about 10 years. But I try to stay as positive as possible.
Just to respond to that, Kadia, even when I was going through, especially because I'm a mental health professional, as a psychologist, I knew that it's not practical nor reasonable to ask anybody to always be upbeat, to always feel like, yeah, I want to testify today. So I went sometimes for 7 days without wanting to talk to anybody. Like there was real depression as a part of the chemotherapy side effects, and as a part of what was happening, it's a huge personal crisis to be going through. So I just want to encourage you, you know, feel all the feelings. If you feel like crying, it's normal, it's human, it's healthy.
That's what I'm doing. So, I mean, chemotherapy is hard. I did major surgeries. I did a oophorectomy, hysterectomy, a nipple-sparing mastectomy, and reconstructive surgery. I did all that in one surgery. So it was, you know, I would take the surgeries any day than the chemotherapy.
In terms of coping though, crying to me is a very natural part of it. Feeling all your feelings, no matter what they are on a given day, are part of it. But how else have you kept going?
Well, my daughter keeps me going. What I try to do is, in between the times that I'm feeling better, I try to go out and do something with the family. I have a mountain of support, and you know, each bring different gifts of encouragement and support. But what was your support like?
So for me, my support system was largely about my mom. She's like my backbone, right? So my mom, and then my aunt, my cousin, and some friends who are like family.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm really, really grateful that I had that kind of love. So
oh, that's nice.
There's so many women who are going through the journey right now. What words of encouragement would you share with them?
Well, I would say to them, listen, there is no I can't do it, because you have to do it. You have to practice, you know, gratitude. You have to try and be strong and be thankful for each day, because it gets better. You just take it a day at a time and just enjoy each day as it comes. Yeah.
Sending you all the love in the world.
Yes.
And I love that part that you mentioned, Kadia, because it does get better.
Yes.
Little by little. And no matter what the prognosis is, what I found to be essential was just keeping gratitude at the center of it all.
Yes, you have to.
Even for the small things, the smallest of things, I just had this profound sense of it could be worse.
Yes.
And just holding on to that every hour, every day got me through day by day, week by week, month by month, until October 18th, God's willing, I'll be 7 years.
Wow, that's excellent. That's excellent. So what I remember I was feeling down yesterday, and I was reading something on Facebook, and this lady, she's a 40-year survivor, and I'm like, oh my God, because you know that in the back of our heads we have the what ifs, you know, what if it comes back. But I mean, seeing that 40-year survivor, I'm like, oh yes, I'm going to see my grandkids. I'm going to see my daughter graduate. So I'm just holding on to hope, faith, support, and love right now. That's what keeps me going. Yeah.
And I'm expressing gratitude for you.
Yes.
I'm glad I got to meet you.
And the same for you as well.
Much love.
Thank you.
The Registrar General's Department records show that from 2010 up until 2014, there are 1,634 death certificates in Jamaica that named breast cancer as the main cause of death. But the truth is, this does not have to be a death sentence. If this is something that you're experiencing, I hope that both Kamala and Kadia's stories will help you along your journey. And if you know someone that's in the fight with breast cancer, wherever you can, reach out and assist.
We now turn our attention to one of the rarest forms of cancer, bladder cancer. Learn more about the causes, signs, and treatment of this insidious disease.
According to the World Health Organization's World Health Ranking, someone in Jamaica is more likely to lose their life from prostate cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, stomach, cervical, liver, uterine, and even ovary cancer before they'll ever go from bladder cancer. Now, the rarity of this illness drafted local statistics at 0.34% of the total number of deaths in the island in 2018. That's only 62 people. But of course, that's 62 people too many. And maybe, just possibly, 62,000 people not having ever heard of this disease until now.
So the bladder is a small muscular organ that is in the pelvis, deep down in the pelvis. Its purpose is really to store urine. Now, cancer, as has been said before, it refers to the unregulated abnormal growth of cells, and in this case it would be the bladder. So bladder cancer is unregulated growth, usually from the lining of the bladder, that is abnormal cell growth. So the signs and symptoms of bladder cancer, usually the commonest sign is usually hematuria. Now what hematuria is blood in the urine. So usually it's painless hematuria, maybe painful hematuria, which is pain along with blood in the urine. Also, there may be irritative bladder symptoms, or as we would say, storage, lower urinary tract symptoms. Some of these include urgency, frequency, going to the bathroom frequently, waking up often at nights, it's known as nocturia, and in general, some dysuria, which is like burning when you pass your urine.
Now, before you experience any of those symptoms, there are some causative factors that lead to bladder cancer that you may want to assess first. It simply means that while it happens, it's usually preventable.
The commonest causative factor for bladder cancer is cigarette smoking. It's actually associated with about 50 to 60% of bladder cancers. There are other risk factors which are known as occupational hazards. So individuals who work in the industries and have prolonged exposure to aromatic amines, aromatic hydrocarbons. So in the textile industry, painters, those who work with tar, amongst other occupational hazards, are at risk for bladder cancer. Patients who also have, for whatever reason, they'll have chronic irritation to the bladder. So there's a parasitic infestation known as schistosomiasis that's really associated with bladder cancer also. Patients who have chronic catheters, indwelling catheters, as well as bladder stones and a few other things that cause chronic irritation to the bladder.
Now, bladder cancer is very picky when it comes down to gender, with the likelihood of displaying its sprouting behavior on men more often than women. And while the data shows that you don't necessarily need to be thinking about this until you're well over your 40s, there is proof that it affects many of us who are nowhere near to collecting our pension. Wow.
The older you become is the more at risk you are. Usually not before the age of 40 that bladder cancer is seen. It's more common in the 5th to 6th decades of life. 5th, 6th, 7th decades of life. It's actually more common in men than women, and this is thought to be associated with lifestyle amongst other things. Bladder cancer is very treatable. In fact, most bladder cancers present as organ-confined disease, meaning that they're absolutely curable. The treatment options include definitely surgery. This involves what is known as a transurethral resection of the bladder to actually get diagnosis, and in some cases is curative if the tumor is completely gotten. This involves passing instruments through the urethra, which is the opening through which you pass urine from the bladder, and that allows us to see the tumor. It allows us to resect or scrape the tumor away from the bladder wall, and in some cases we may or may not give intravesical immunotherapy or chemotherapy depending on the risk of the disease. But that's usually how bladder cancer is initially treated.
So now may be a good time to just pause for a bit and think about the causes, signs and symptoms of bladder cancer. And if you've been treated from it before, remember to get your regular checkups because bladder cancer has a high recurrence rate. Watching from the sidelines or the confines of a bed can be a bit of a sting for some, piercing for others. So let's go stronger and healthier together by prioritizing our health.
What a way you're full of roots and culture. That was in Jamaica 60. Jamaica 60? What a piece of news, Miss Matty. I feel like my heart going bust up.
Just in, the island of Jamaica is on the verge of celebrating its 60th year of independence.
A whole way of celebrating it. They say the people them, you know, them come here, you know. But you see, when our people decide, say the other people them free paper, you know, them say if it's war, start it, whatever. We all collect medal panta fight, you know.
Medal.
Amount of tongue we give them, you know.
The celebrations are slated to begin on January 1st, 2022. Organized by the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. We have more in this report.
I am on site and planning activities are ablaze. Persons are advised to download the Reggae Jamaica app to know what it activities for the Jamaica 60 celebration.
Yeah, I don't know the app to get the updates then.
Perhaps one of the simplest but most practical lines that I've ever read was one by Johann von Goethe. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. As we stand in unison to observe World Cancer Day, let's arm ourselves with the means of knowing and charging our efforts to take the right actions to fight this threat. Here's the Union for International Cancer Control's breakdown of the Progress, Impact, Equity and Change report. Progress. Through investing in research and innovation, we have witnessed extraordinary breakthroughs in medicine, diagnostics, and scientific knowledge. Knowing more gives us an opportunity to create progress in reducing risk factors, increasing prevention, and improving cancer diagnosis, prevention, treatment, and care. Impact. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, and other UN agencies have recognized the urgent need for a global commitment. When leaders speak up and take action, we give ourselves a chance to move towards a world without cancer. Equity. Today, more than half of cancer deaths are happening in the least developed parts of the world. Even if you live in a higher income country, inequities can still exist among lower income, rural communities, or even immigrants. Equitable access to cancer prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and care can save lives. Change. Through raising the public and political literacy and understanding around cancer, we reduce fear, increase understanding, dispel myths and misconceptions, and change behaviors and attitudes. Many cancer cases can be prevented or cured if detected early and treated properly. Let's become aware, share the information, take action, and help to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We can all make better decisions when we are informed. We've done our part today. Now it's up to you to take that information, Go out and create better spaces in your world. Tomorrow promises another informative Jamaica Magazine package, but until then, you can rewatch this and other shows or features or news items on our YouTube page. Also, visit the JIS's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter pages for more information. From all of us here at the JIS, I'm Audrey Williams. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.